Was the Quran preserved? Hi, I'm Abdullah Samir. I'm going to be sharing a clip of a discussion with my friend Abdullah Gondal where we discuss this very question.
إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ.
Indeed, it is we who sent down the message, and indeed we will be its guardian.
Gondal and myself didn't say anything revolutionary in this conversation, but we brought up a few things to think about. Abdullah Gondal brought up several points which are actually not common knowledge, but they are agreed upon in the Muslim community. The ones that do know about these differences downplay it and try to say that these are trivial differences or they're insignificant. But the fact that differences in the Quran that we have today even exist should raise some eyebrows. How did we end up here? Well, according to the Hadith, Allah revealed the Quran in 7 dialects, which was made for easy memorization by the local tribes and whatever. But then it ended up causing more problems in the community and more confusion after Muhammad died, so Uthman was forced to destroy all of them except for one. However, some elements of them still survived, and that's how we ended up with the 7 or the 10 Qiraat. The preservation of the Quran is dubious. What we find with differences in letters, differences in vowels, words missing or added is exactly what we'd expect to find in a book with an oral tradition that wasn't preserved properly. The fracturing of a book in this manner is exactly what we would expect to find if it wasn't preserved, not if it was. The so-called hadith that explains this fact and says that Angel Gabriel came and actually revealed it in 7 dialects seems to be like a very sneaky cover-up in order to make sense out of the fact that the Quran is preserved but also contains multiple variations. It doesn't make much sense.
Why is it some people say 7, other people say 10?
Sure.
What's the deal
so
with that?
If you're going to just read through the main teachers,
okay.
So there are main teachers who then said, this is one style of recitation I've heard from my teacher. They maintain a lineage. You can take 7 main teachers at the top. Some of those teachers then had students of theirs who offshot and became their own recitation.
So it's like students who became their own brands.
Became their own brand, but everyone knows where did their brand come from.
Okay.
Go from 7 to 10 is the 7 main, and then a few teachers had, Nafi had 2 students, and then there are other teachers who had 2. I don't want to throw names just yet.
Okay.
It makes things more complicated. And so let's go back to the concept that the Quran is allowed to be pronounced. So it was revealed Maliki Yawmiddin, then transmitted to down south in Texas. So we're saying in contrast to the Arabian world. Someone in Texas doesn't pronounce the same way.
Yeah.
So Maliki Yawmiddin was read Maliki Yawmiddin.
Okay.
The Prophet ﷺ in some cases became aware and then asked the angel, is this okay? And the angel said, yes, this astonishes me.
Yeah.
So the angel said, yes, Maliki Yawmiddin is okay. And here then opened up the chains or the dialects.
Now, all the following screenshots I have, they are all taken from QuranFlash.com. It's a Muslim site, and they have all these different mushafs. And you can actually buy these different mushafs in different parts of the Muslim world. Some revisions of the Quran are more dominant and more prevalent in certain parts of the Muslim world. Like suppose Northern Africa, I believe, has more people using the Warsh Quran, and then most of the Muslim world uses the Hafs. But they're still equally all authentic.
Now, so these are the 7 ahruf. They're exactly 7 ahruf that Allah Azza wa Jal allowed the Quran to be recited in based upon the dialects, the famous 7 dialects of the Arabian Peninsula. Now, when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, the Sahaba understood these differences and they went to their various lands and respective regions and continued to recite the way that they had been taught, each one as the Prophet ﷺ had taught him. But many of the younger people, not the companions, the students of the companions, were unaware of these differences. And we mentioned in a previous episode that some of these different younger students met up, for example, in Azerbaijan, on the Muslim battlefield, the front lines of the Muslim border. And one of them is reciting according to Ibn Mas'ud, the other one is reciting according to Zayd ibn Thabit, and they don't know that the Quran has been revealed in different recitations. And so they began fighting one another. They began accusing the other one of falling into error. And that is why Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman went back to Medina and he said, "Oh Uthman ibn Affan, you have to combine the ummah on one mushaf, on one recitation, such that all of these other differences are gotten rid of." And so Uthman ibn Affan combined the ummah upon the recitation of the Qurayshi dialect. It was the Qurayshi dialect, and all of the other recitations and versions were gotten rid of. However, even though these other versions were gotten rid of, certain elements were left, much more trivial than the actual differences in the ahruf. And these elements primarily resolved upon pronunciation of the letters. Why? Because Uthman ibn Affan preserved the writing of the Qurayshi dialect. And so all of the synonyms that were used, that were in other dialects, were gotten away with. But still, the writing can be read in different ways. If I send you a letter and you are in a certain part of the world, you will read the English in a certain way. And if I send it in another part of the world, the people in that region will read it in a different way. And this is all a part of the English language. And it is something that every language has. And so the people would recite certain words. It's the same word, but they would recite it in different pronunciations. Sometimes there will be differences in harakat as well. And these differences were based upon how the Prophet ﷺ taught the various tribes. And these differences began to be recorded by later scholars. And these differences were then ascribed to the people who became famous for them. So these differences were named after specific people. And these people were the ones who became famous for their particular recitation. Until finally, the codification of these recitations occurred, and this was done in the 2nd and 3rd century of the Hijrah, and these recitations are known in Arabic as the Qiraat. The Qiraat are not the same as the 7 ahruf. I'll give you a very simple analogy here, which will help you understand what the difference is between the ahruf and the Qiraat. The ahruf are what Allah Azza wa Jal revealed divinely. If you jumble up all the ahruf together, and then you spread them and let every person recite according to one of these recitations, according to some mixture of these recitations, these become the Qiraat. And the Qiraat are named after specific people who specialized in them.
Exactly, and the variants we see do reflect that what you would expect from humans. If a book was preserved by humans, this is what you would expect. And if it was from God, then what's the point in having so many different ones? And it's making it so hard to believe that it was actually preserved, because it seems more objectively likely that it was not from God and it was mostly work of man and work of fallible humans, and hence we see the variants. So if you start from the top left, if you notice that in one of the Qur'ans, I believe it's Hafs and Warsh, it says فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْغَنِيُّ الْحَمِيدُ. But in the other version, the word huwa is missing. It's just فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيُّ الْحَمِيدُ. If you go underneath that, there's a slight variation, and that's what I want to point out here is, you notice that the words are written the same, but due to the lack of diacritical marks in the early manuscripts, you're observing this variation where يَقْتُلُونَ and يُقَاتِلُونَ get mixed up, because there weren't no dots. Now the variation is, one meaning would be they fought, and the other meaning is they got killed.
Wow. So this is a perfect example of how lack of dots has ended up with two Qurans.
Yeah.
Different meanings. Now, again, why would God use a language like this? That needs, like, this doesn't even make sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, again, we're left with problems with the official story. But anyways, continue, Sai.
So if you look at the top right now, in one Quran we see wa kutubihi, and then the other one we see wa kitabihi. And this is a difference in singular and plural. One place it says a book, and the other place it says the books. Then again, if you see the one below it, it's wama amilathu, and the other one says wama amilat. There's an extra ha, which the meaning slightly changes, that their hand sent forth and the hands sent forth. Basically, the bad and good deeds it's talking about here.
So what do Muslims say? They say that all of these variants, all of these meanings are correct?
Yes, they say that the meanings change slightly, not too much. They don't take away the central message of the Quran, or there's no variant that really creates a lot of implications. But there are issues in some of the variants where there's one part in Surah Baqarah, I believe, in the Hafs Quran, it says Ta'ami Miskin, and the Warsh Quran, it says Ta'ami Masakin, that one place it says feed one poor after breaking your fast, and the other verse it says feed many poor people. So here you have a fiqhy problem too, because one verse can complicate and say, okay, you got to feed many people as a compensation for suppose missing a fast, but the other one says you have to feed only one poor person. There's another variant in Surah Ma'idah, the ayah of the wudu ayah, and this was recorded by Imam Abu Hanifa, I believe. And the reading he said changed the way the ending of the wudu is done, and that's why you see Shias, they don't wash their feet with water; they just rub a wet hand on their feet. So these variations can affect and can complicate some jurisprudence issues as well.
In conclusion, the Quran is not preserved. What we see today is exactly what we'd expect to see in a book that was not preserved. For more details on this, please check out a full discussion with Abdullah Gondal and myself on Was the Quran Preserved? Thanks for watching.